Thank you for doing this today.
No problem.
I thought about it over the weekend. I thought it would be perfect to have you
Just
sit
text
here.
me.
Yeah, I love it. I need to get your number.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Get a little more notice.
Oh.
Oh.
That's what I was doing last night. Yeah, I don't want to know what you
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Are you serious? Jason? Look, you traded your time for, did I ever, half a couch, too. Half a couch. Doesn't this look like grandma couch?
Oh.
Doesn't that look like?
I looked at it and I wasn't sure how to even comment on it.
He's
So
just
half a
jealous
couch
that I've
works.
got a
Half a couch on your tie?
nice look.
Yeah,
Super
right?
comfy.
Super comfy.
Hey, it causes conversation, right?
Well, got Jason talking.
They got the room talking.
Doesn't take much to get me talking. It's kind of quiet in here. Everybody's huddling towards the door over there.
Because we're hoping that the warmth from the
Are you freezing?
It's always
I'm
cold in
always
here.
cold.
Are you kidding?
Always
I am dying. Look at this.
Hey, you know they've
What
done
happened to
studies
fluffy
that say
guys?
that if you keep the
In
room
suit.
cooler, people will stay awake better,
Yeah, 'cause they're
and they'll be
freezing.
able to process things better.
Makes
Is
sense.
that why you? I'm an exception.
That's
to
why
the
we
rule.
praise you. Yes, actually, we have no control over there.
There's Sean.
That's a good reason. Yeah.
Tony.
Don't worry about it. Whatever I want to do.
Basically,
Up
we're
to
all
you.
still
Good.
on the best.
I was gonna say, do you like games?
That's good.
What,
Rick's got the first two rows.
where?
You know, when I was in school, I always sat in the back row. So it's okay with me that no one is here. It's totally fine. I figured the further back that I was, I could sneak out if I chose. to.
Yes.
And nobody would notice, but.
Yeah.
So if you try to sneak out, no issue. Just do what you gotta do.
Well, guys, let's get started. Thank you for being here. And Rick, people will sneak in
Yeah, great.
as we start doing this.
Awesome.
So I talked to Rick earlier today, and he was so gracious to come in and talk to us. I'm assuming all of you know who Rick is and why he's, maybe not why he's joined us, but that he has. We're excited just of the possibilities of his knowledge that he's infusing within our company and what we're doing as a company with him. And he was gracious enough today to come in and speak to us a little bit about him and some ideas and thoughts that he may have. If you have questions, I'm sure he'd be open for that. We got what with you, Rick? Maybe a half hour, 45 minutes max?
Yeah.
Perfect. So time's yours, my friend.
Thank you. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
So the truth be told, Rick showed up in my office about 30 minutes ago and said, base camp today at 11:30? And so as you can imagine, I've given this lots of great thought and preparation time because I was upstairs banging away on my computer. Anyway, for those of you, I don't think all of you know me, which is totally fine. I'm Rick Davidson. I just retired as the CEO of Century 21 Real Estate globally. I was responsible for over 7,000 offices in 78 countries and territories, 101,000 real estate professionals worldwide. Here in the United States, about 75,000 real estate professionals, and we generated $2.4 billion of closed gross commission income as an organization just in the United States. So quite an organization, quite a lot of fun. It was a wild ride for 7 years, and it was, I don't know, not anything that was ever on my radar screen. Truth be told, I have never sold a home or sat at a kitchen table to pitch a listing for a home. I'm a commercial real estate guy by trade, so phones are totally good, but ringers, 10 bucks to the chair. Right? I'm a commercial real estate guy by trade. I've sold hundreds of millions of dollars of commercial real estate in my career. I primarily, I did spend my entire commercial real estate career in Washington, D.C., the greater surrounding D.C. marketplace. Most of my clients were institutional in nature, so big life companies, hedge funds, pension funds, you know, you name it. And I pitched a lot of real estate listings, believe me. I've stood in front of many boardrooms and pitched listings as to what was the differentiating advantage for hiring me and my team versus hiring the competition. So while I may never have sat at a kitchen table to pitch a listing, I certainly understand what it means, good morning, Jen, to be able to differentiate yourself with a customer. And so what's been interesting about it, so the whole thing with Century 21 was never on my radar because I went from running CB Richard Ellis in the greater Washington, D.C. market to opening my own brokerage firm. And I bought a franchise. And the franchise that I bought was a Coldwell Banker commercial franchise. And I connected that to my real estate company, Coldwell Banker Commercial. Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's, ERA, Better Homes and Gardens, Century 21, Coldwell Banker Commercial are all owned by the same parent company, Realogy. So I bought this franchise and I was running a commercial real estate company. We were 9 guys doing about $6 million of GCI between the 9 of us. So we were highly productive, very successful senior guys in the business. And interestingly enough, after about 4 years as a franchise owner, the chairman of Realogy came and said, how about if I find somebody to buy your company and you come be the president of Coldwell Banker Commercial? And I thought to myself, what? You know, first of all, it was not on my radar. Secondly, I had no intention of going to work for a big, stodgy Fortune 500 company. I'm an entrepreneur. However, push comes to shove, you know what they say, they made you a deal you couldn't turn down. Next thing I know, my wife and I are moving from the DC market to New Jersey. So for those of you that have heard that I'm from New Jersey, I'm not from New Jersey. I just happen to live in New Jersey. And, but I'm a Marylander by, not by birth, but certainly that's where I spent the vast majority of my life, but lived in Virginia prior to moving to New Jersey. And so I went on to become the president of Coldwell Banker Commercial. Spent a lot of time out here in Salt Lake during that time because of Coldwell Banker Commercial Advisors, Brandon Fugel and the whole team of people that work at that shop here in the commercial real estate industry. That was a company-owned store when I was the president, so I used to travel here, did a lot of work there. There was a guy by the name of Gary Mangum. I don't know if you know him in the industry, but he was running that organization at the time. And so I was at CBC as the president for 4.5 years. Then they came and asked me to be the chief operating officer of Coldwell Banker on the residential side of the business. And I did that for a year before they came and said, we've got a challenge for you. How'd you like to run Century 21? And I thought to myself, my God, if I put that on my radar of my life, it would not have been a blip because it's just not the realm of my thinking. But I looked at it and I looked at the opportunity and I said, here's a great brand that is a household name. It's certainly an iconic brand in the business that in my estimation had gotten a little tired. And really needed to be rejuvenated and needed to be focused and needed to be resold to the consumer and more importantly to the real estate industry as a whole. I think that the industry saw the brand as somewhat tired. So I love challenges. I am an alpine mountaineer by hobby. I've climbed pretty much every glaciated mountain in the continental United States as well as a number of glaciated mountains around the world. And I love a good challenge, right? Whether it's a physical challenge or an intellectual challenge or, you know, a work challenge. So I took it on and it was a long, hard run for 7 years. I told my wife when I was considering the job, I said, you understand if I take this, this is going to be a 2-year sprint followed by a marathon. Well, at the end of 7 years, the sprint had never ended. It was a 7-year sprint, 1,002 miles on an airplane over 7 years. I don't know how many countries, how many cities, how many states, how many tens of thousands of agents that I had an opportunity to talk with and converse with, brokerage firms, you know, etc. So really got to understand the business and the industry and certainly this brand. I always had kind of a goal and an objective in mind as to when I thought that I would duck out. God bless you. And we really achieved the success that I was looking for the team to achieve. So I said, you know, it's time for me to think about what am I going to do for the next 10 years of my life. I am an entrepreneur. I do like challenges. I love to see opportunity in the market and take advantage of market opportunity. And as I thought about what am I going to do, I started to take a look around the industry and I said, if I was going to go off and do something, who would I want to do it with? And there were two guys that immediately came to mind for me, and that was George and John. These are people of incredible integrity. They are very good at what they do. They have a very unique culture that they've created. That is why all of you are sitting here at 11:30 on a Wednesday to hear about how to affect your business or take a look at your business in a different way to continue to improve not only who you are professionally, but even who you are as people. And that's very intriguing to me. So I said, you know, I want to go off and do something because I see a market opportunity today, which is a growth opportunity. And it's a growth opportunity because there's a lot of change occurring within our industry. So I talked to George and John. In fact, it was Jen and George and John and Kay and my wife Tina and I all had dinner together in October last year down in the Bahamas and started talking about what this might look like. And the next thing you know, my wife and I were packing up and we moved to Sandy. So it's been an interesting time since I retired on the 21st of April. But I'm super excited to be here, and I have a lot to learn. But you know, I have a really good foundation to learn upon. So I may not understand this company yet and exactly how it functions and operates and all of the things that I've got to get my arms wrapped around. And just so you understand, so I'm the president of the Everest Group, which is like the parent company of Everest here in Utah and Troop in California. And the parent company is looking to build and expand and figure out how we can get our tentacles in other aspects of the market and continue to build this machine that has been created, which will add tremendous value back to you as individual agents, because you'll have greater level of resource and connection and people and you know, platforms to be able to connect to and to really leverage up, in addition to already having all of the resources that the brand provides. So that's what I'm here for, and I'm going to be working really hard and most importantly, having a ton of fun. This is a really fun business, as long as you make it fun. It's a difficult business, don't get me wrong, and I understand how tough this business can be. But it's a really fun business because you control your own destiny. There's no one saying how much or how little you can earn, how hard or how little you need to work. It's all up to you. And you get to kind of set the goal, set the objective, take a look at the marketplace, take a look at the opportunity, and go out and execute to whatever level you choose that you want to execute. And that to me is incredibly exciting. And that's what truly being an entrepreneur, frankly, is all about. So as I thought about, after Rick talked to me 30 minutes ago and said, hey, you want to come down and lead base camp, I started thinking about something, and it's really about relevancy. And that's what this industry is faced with today, is a challenge about the relevancy of the industry, and more specifically, the relevancy of a real estate professional. You know, there's all kinds of models that are out there today, do-it-yourself models. I think here in Utah, my understanding is there's probably more for sale by owners than there is in most other markets around the country, and I think that's a Utahan you know, kind of approach to life. You know, what can they do on their own, and how can they do it themselves and save some dollars in the process, and you know, they take on the challenge. In fact, my next door neighbor, where we just moved in Sandy, a guy by the name of Ken, I just met on the corner yesterday, and he was explaining that he and his wife Debbie are going on mission and moving down to Curacao, I believe, for 18 months, tough duty. And he said, so we were going to rent our house, but now we've decided to sell it. And I said, well, if you need some help with that, I happen to be in that business. And he said, no, we're going to sell it ourselves. And I thought, okay, well, that's terrific. good luck with that. So I hope that he does well. It's a beautiful home and great neighborhood. I don't know what challenges he'll face, but he knows I'm in the industry, so if something comes about, you know, I'll grab the opportunity and refer it. Anyway, I started thinking about, well, why would Ken not want to hire a real estate agent? And why would any of us want to hire a real estate agent? So I just sold my home in New Jersey. It was an expensive home. The fee was significant. And the agent brought a tremendous amount of relevance to the table. And obviously I hired a Century 21 agent. And in my price range, which was you know, over $1 million, there were about 90 houses that competed in my town alone. Wow. With my home. In fact, they say that there's about 4 years worth of inventory on the market in the price range of the homes that that mine sold for. And so I was really nervous about it because, you know, we were coming to Utah. I didn't want to have to carry that house, and there's nothing worse than having a house with an absentee owner trying to be upkept and you're trying to sell it as a real estate agent. It's just really difficult, and I thought, man, I'm going to end up taking a beating, which I had already taken, by the way. As smart as we think that we are in the real estate business, sometimes circumstances just impact the decisions that we get to make in terms of buying or selling real estate. So I bought this home in June of 2006. Enough said. And I bought it because that's when I moved to New Jersey, and my wife and I wanted to establish a home there, and we wanted to buy, and we knew what we wanted, and we paid a heck of a lot more money for that home in June of 2006 than I just sold it for in May of 2017. I basically rented that home for the last 11 years, which is crazy because if you know what the monthly nut was on it, it was significant. So it was a lot of money that was put back into that house that I will, to be quite honest, it's the only real estate investment I've ever lost money on. However, that agent brought tremendous value to the table in the sale process. From the time we met with her to talk about the listing to the time the home was closed was 60 days. Wow. Which to me is just unbelievable in a market that's got 4 years worth of inventory. So she knew how to establish the home in the market prior to getting it out to on as an actual listing on the MLS. She knew how to leverage her relationships within the marketplace. She did extensive market analysis and understood the very specific market where the property sat. And, you know, oftentimes I have a saying for this in the commercial real estate business, that sometimes real estate is not about the actual real estate asset. Sometimes real estate and the value of real estate is about the story that gets told about the asset in the marketplace. So how do you help to differentiate what that property is within the specific market in order to get the marketplace to look at it a little differently than they might like any other listing in the market? So she was able to accomplish that by leveraging customer or industry relationships and seeding the market with an opportunity, and she helped me to understand where we needed to price it, even though I wasn't happy about the price. Because the price, just the listing price alone was $300,000 less than I had paid for it. So but it was what it was, right? So did I want to sit on the house and carry it after I moved to Utah, or did I actually want to sell the house and just move on, take the loss that I knew I was going to take anyway, and get on with life? And certainly the latter was more important to me than it was trying to fight what the market was actually saying. But she understood the market, fully understood it, and did an unbelievable analysis of the marketplace. She was highly relevant, and she got paid well for it. Here was the greatest thing. Century 21 doesn't even have an office in the town where I live. Not even an office. And Century 21 had both sides of that deal. Wow. They brought the buyer, and she was representing us as the seller. I loved it. So, of course, I picked up the phone and called the chief operating officer of Century 21 and said, I hope you know how much GCI I just generated for you on both sides of this deal. the royalties that are going to get paid as a result of that. That was a fun phone call. Anyway, what it got me thinking about is relevancy. There's a tremendous amount of disruption that's occurring within the marketplace. You know, you drive up and down 15 or 215, whatever highway it is, and you see all these signs about homey, right? And I know there's all this conversation about homey in the marketplace. There's all this opportunity for FSBOs and DIYs and Redfin and, you know, who knows what the different models are, right? The only reason that these models are present in today's marketplace is because the consumer feels as though the agent is not relevant in the transaction and not worthy of the fee in which they're getting paid. There's no question about it, because I can tell you I have had personal hundreds of conversations with customers, and many of them in the millennial age range. Just at, you know, call it millennials began in the early 1980s. So, you know, they're in their mid-30s today. That's clearly in the home buying and home selling age range. And almost to the person with the conversations that I've had, even with those tech-savvy, what I call tech natives, that grew up with technology on their laps. I have a son and a daughter who were both tech natives. They grew up, you know, literally with iPads on their laps. And what's interesting is even those that are as tech-savvy as those, oh, there's a ring of $10. So even as tech-savvy as they are still looking for someone to become their trusted advisor. And that's where you need to be focused and be thinking, is about being a customer's trusted advisor. So when I was in the commercial real estate business, what I never focused on was my fee, ever. Not that I didn't charge the right amount, but I never focused on whether or not I was going to earn the fee. I only wanted to do the right thing for the customer. And those customers came to get to know me as their trusted advisor. And to the day, today as I'm standing here, I still have customers, and I haven't sold a real estate asset, meaning going in, pitching a listing, selling a building. I sold a $40 million office building in Tysons Corner, Virginia, in May of 2006. That was the last real estate transaction for a client that I actually did before I got into the corporate side of the business. I still have customers today that pick up the phone and say, man, I know you're really busy, Rick, but would you consider taking a look at these due diligence documents and tell me what you think? They send me the rent rolls, they send me the P&Ls, they send me the engineering reports, they send me the architectural reports. And the reason for that is because they know that I'm going to tell them what they need to hear, and it's likely not what they want to hear, or it might be what they want to hear. So I'm so relevant in the transaction with those customers as their trusted advisor that I'm not even in the business anymore per se, yet they still reach out to me to get my advice. That's establishing a trusted advisor relationship with your customer. So I was reading this recently, and I'm going to talk about this danger report in a minute. But this is a quote that's on the front page. I don't like lawyers, but I rarely work with an incompetent one. I like real estate agents, but there are many incompetent ones. One of the greatest dangers facing the industry today is the fact that we have such a low barrier to entry in this business. There are so many professionals in this industry that frankly are not competent enough to be sitting at a kitchen table talking to a customer about why they should hire them to buy or sell real estate. And that's highly problematic, and it's a great reason not to be part of that group of people that are considered to be incompetent in this business, or maybe not incompetent, but not as competent as they need to be in order to be really effective and provide a trusted advisor kind of service for your customer. So how many of you have heard of the danger report? So that's interesting. No one has. And the danger is an acronym for the definitive analysis of negative game-changing changes emerging in real estate. I just need my glasses. I'm going to read it again. DANGER stands for the definitive analysis of negative game changers emerging in real estate. This is it, the danger report. Okay, this happens to be dangers impacting agents. If you haven't read this, you need to. Okay, because this document, and there's one for brokers, there's one for MLSs, there's one for associations, there's one for agents. So there's a group, first of all, the National Association of Realtors teamed up with a guy by the name of Stefan Swanepoel. How many of you have ever heard of Stefan? Okay, he does the, I think it's called the T3 Top 200 list. So the top 200 most influential people in real estate. But Stefan is just a phenomenal consultant to the industry. And his group, the T3 group, teamed up with NAR, and they went out and they interviewed over 200 industry leaders. I happen to be one of those that they interviewed. But they interviewed a lot of people across the industry, from agents to team leaders to brokers to heads of real estate companies and brands to MLS leaders to NAR leadership, mortgage providers, title providers across the industry. And they said, what are the biggest dangers that are affecting the industry today? So one of the biggest dangers, in fact, I believe it's the #1 danger affecting agents today, is the fact that we have way too many incompetent agents in this industry. And it's a low barrier to entry. There's very little requirement for educational expertise or knowledge. You know, if I had my say, I would like to see real estate agents go through some sort of an apprenticeship, almost like an appraiser. That's a great example. An appraiser can't just get an appraiser's license. They have to actually apprentice, I think, for 2 years before they become an appraiser. So they have to really understand. And then not only should we have you know, continuing education requirements, in addition to that, I think that there should be a minimum number of home sale transactions that you have to complete each year, or else you don't get to keep your license. That says that you're staying fresh, that says that you're staying up to speed on the marketplace, in the industry, that you're learning, that you're going to class, that you're talking with other industry professionals, that you're understanding all of the changes that are coming about. And this is something, and I'm going to tie this back to a story about climbing, and mountain climbing specifically, but I'll wait on that, because I think that just talking about needing to be this trusted advisor for your customer is a responsibility that is really significant. And that responsibility requires each of us as industry professionals to constantly be honing our craft. One thing that I love about this business is, and I mean this sincerely, there is not one day in this business, and I've been doing this since 1988 is when I got into the commercial real estate business. There's not one day in all of those years, so it'll be 30 years next year, that I've not learned something new. Not one day. All you have to do is be open to it, have your ears open, your eyes open, be in conversation with other people, listen to how they might be approaching their business, take a look at the industry as a whole, what's happening at a macro level from an economic standpoint, how is that influencing the consumer's expectation and the consumer's wallet, what you might need to be doing differently, what's happening with the market specifically, what's happening with the micro market specifically, what's going on with one street in the particular neighborhood. There's so much information and so much to learn about this business that you can just be a sponge and just be constantly gobbling it up. And that's what I do every single day. I learn something new every single day in this business, whether I try to learn something new or not. I could have my head buried in trying to develop a report, and sure enough, something will spark and I'll say, I really need to check that out, and thinking about the thesis maybe that I'm trying to write about, and look on the internet, and the next thing that I know, I'm learning something new, or pick up the phone and talk to someone, I've learned something new. It's critically important for us to be out in the marketplace, meeting with customers, and having them know us as really being on the edge, on the cutting edge, and the cusp of what's happening within the business. And it's, you know, helping all of us to really raise the bar relative to the professionalism that there is within the industry. One of the things that I love about this company is the expectation of professionalism. And you know, there's a certain culture here, and it's an awesome culture. It's highly participative. There's a lot of opportunity to learn, there's an expectation to learn, and we get up every day and we go into the marketplace dressed for success, right? We're here going to the market because we want the customer to understand how important that we think that their home sale transaction is, that we're taking this as a business. And that's a great thing because the consumer, the reputation and the position that we establish with the consumer helps to raise the bar for the entire industry. You know, there will always be tons of different models that are out there. There will always be tons of reasons why the consumer should choose a competitor. There will always be tons of reasons why a consumer should think about doing it on their own. But the reality is that you have an opportunity to turn that in every single instance. It's all about becoming their trusted advisor, going in and understanding their expectation, and then delivering, you know, an incredible service coupled with expertise, market knowledge, experience, negotiating skills, all of those things that help to deliver a whole nother level of service to the consumer than your competitors do. That's the most important. So, just thinking about the industry as a whole, it's been 30 minutes, so I don't want to run over. But thinking about the industry and just thinking about the quality of the people that come into this business, and we all know who they are, those that we're talking about, right? When you find out that they're on the other side of a deal and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I've got to work through a transaction with, you know, so-and-so, whoever it is, and you can come up with your own name because I see many of you smiling and you've already identified that person. Right? We've all worked with them. We've all sat across the table trying to accomplish the same goal for our respective customers, and we know how difficult the transaction is going to be because we know that this agent is probably somewhat incompetent, right? Yeah, look at this. There's many heads that are not. So we need, as an organization, to help raise the bar. We need, as an organization, to help improve the reputation of real estate professionals within the industry. We need, as an organization, to be out in the marketplace representing this industry at the highest levels. The highest levels of integrity, the highest levels of service, the highest levels of use of technology, the highest levels of market intelligence and knowledge, the highest levels of negotiation skills, the highest levels of expertise. We need to be setting the bar for the rest of the industry, and that in turn will help raise the bar. And then we also need to be willing to call out those that are not living up to that expectation because they're in fact damaging the reputation of the business, of the industry, and in turn of everyone sitting in this room. When I think about this company and I think about all of you, I think about the fact that we're all connected. Every one of us in this room is representing everyone else in this room. And in turn, if you really want to think about it on a collective, you're representing over 110,000 real estate sales professionals that carry the Century 21 business card. That's an awesome responsibility. Because when you serve a customer, and the customer has an opportunity to talk about who you are and the company that you work for, they're not just talking about you, they're talking about all of us. If you don't serve a client well, they're not going to speak well of us in the market. If you don't serve a customer well, the next opportunity they have to refer business, they're not going to talk about all of us collectively well. That's an incredible and an awesome responsibility. And I take it very seriously. And I can assure you that at every opportunity I'm out in front of this company representing you with the highest level of integrity and professionalism and expertise and knowledge. So that when I do have a chance to meet someone, like my next door neighbor Ken, who's going to, you know, do help you sell or whatever model it is that he's going to use, he saw me as a person of, you know, he saw me as a professional and understood, okay, so if this doesn't work out for me, I may be coming and knocking on Rick's door and seeing who he can connect me to sell my home. But that's critically important. It's planting the seed. It's establishing that, you know, kind of that image, if you will. And we all need to be out there establishing that image that would make every one of us in this room and every one of us connected to this company incredibly proud. So, as an alpine mountaineer, it's a really cool sport. It's very individual, but it's also the most, probably the most intense team sport that can be played. And here's why. So when I'm thinking about going and climbing a mountain, the first thing is I've got an objective. That's the summit. Okay? However, sometimes achieving the summit means that you have to know when you're not going to achieve it. And you have to be safe, and because the most important part of ascent of a mountain is the safe descent of a mountain. Many people spend every ounce of energy to get to the summit, and they don't have what's left in order to get down. So when I'm thinking about an objective being the summit, and I'm going off to climb a mountain, obviously I understand everything there is to understand about the mountain. I want to understand the risks that are associated with the mountain. I want to understand what is the best route to take. Now, if I want to press the limits and I want to take a route that maybe others haven't taken, or I want to take a route that's less traveled than others, then I'll think about that and look at the risks that are associated with that. And then you begin the planning process. So you're planning, you've got your objective established, you know exactly what you want to accomplish, and you have to start training. So the only person who's going to get you to the top of that mountain and safely descending back to base is yourself. And most of the time, it's right here whether or not you're going to make it. But physically, you have to be in the condition to be able to achieve the summit and to get off safely. So after you're in the training mode, you start thinking about, who's my team? Who do I want to go climb this mountain with? Who am I going to connect my rope to? And if push comes to shove, do I have enough trust and confidence in that are going to save my life if it comes to that? Because once you're on to, you show up, well, I'll continue with the sequence. So you identify your teammates, and you have lots of calls, and you figure out exactly what it is that the challenges that you're going to be facing. You're planning everything. There's kind of this set expectation. Everyone is preparing individually in order to climb the mountain. Everyone has taken on the challenge to physically be able to make the mountain, to be able to make the summit. Everyone understands the objective, and everyone is working hard individually so that when the team comes together, the team can achieve the objective. So you show up at the mountain. Everybody's got all their gear, hopefully. Everybody's in good shape. Everybody's in a good mental place. Everybody's ready to take on the mountain. And you start the climb. And typically, you could be starting a climb deep in the forest. You finally get up above tree line, somewhere, close to, 13,000 feet. You reach tree line. You break out of tree line. You get up to the glacier. Now you're onto the glacier. As soon as you step onto a glacier, you have to rope up. And the reason for that is there's a lot of hidden dangers on a glacier. First of all, there's the opportunity for avalanche, obviously, but more importantly, there are crevasses. And crevasses oftentimes are hidden. You don't even know that you're on a crevasse until it's too late. So there are things called snow bridges that get formed on a glacier. And the reason for that is you got a lot of blowing snow and ice, and you could have a crevasse that's 30 feet wide and 200 plus feet deep. And some of them, they say, don't have bottoms. Obviously, they have a bottom at some point, but by the time you found it, you wouldn't be alive, and you certainly wouldn't get out. But these snow bridges get formed simply by the blowing with the prevailing wind. It blows the ice across until it covers the crevasse. A 30-foot span that gets covered over in its entirety, and you don't even know that the crevasse is there. And the crevasse could be anywhere from, the snow bridge could be anywhere from, 4 or 5 feet thick to a foot thick. And you don't know until you pull out your probe and you start to test the bridge as you're going across it, because you're thinking that there might be something dangerous here. At this particular point, your team is your life, truly. Because if you break through the snow bridge, you're falling into the crevasse. But you're roped off and you're hooked into your harness, and you've tested all your equipment, and you know that everything's right, and all the guys or the gals that are on your rope team all know that they need to go into self-arrest mode, and they need to protect you from either sliding down the glacier face or from falling into the crevasse. And they all know what they need to accomplish in order to make sure that the team is safe. But as you're ascending up the mountain and you come across these snow bridges, or you're on a precarious slope and there's, just nothing but vastness and ice below you, and one slip could mean a glissade, and a glissade could turn into disaster. But you're connected to your rope team, so you don't worry about it. And as you're moving up the mountain, you're watching your team really closely, because everyone has done what they've needed to do in order to prepare to reach the summit, but maybe everyone doesn't have what it takes in order to get there. So you watch this team very, very carefully, because if push comes to shove, it's the difference between life and death. And as you move up the mountain, these are all your buddies. These are all your friends. You've spent months together planning this ascent. You've spent a tremendous amount of time. You know that they've spent time training. You know that they've spent time getting all the equipment together. They've spent a lot of money in order to get to the destination and be fully geared up and ready for the climb. But you're watching your team really closely. And if you've got a link on the team that is weak, you have to have a fierce conversation with that person. You got to sit down with them. You got to say, I know how much you put into getting here. I know how much you put into training, and that you want to achieve the summit, but it's not going to happen today. Because there's a certain point on the mountain when you get up near the summit, like near what's called the head wall, where unclipping someone is unsafe. There's not a place where you can safely kind of carve out a spot in the glacier, stick a snow stake in, tie it off, put your buddy in a sleeping bag, and say, we'll see you on the descent. And that's what happens if you get unclipped. I unclipped my brother at 13,700 feet on Mount Rainier because he couldn't get to the top. He was spent. But if I hadn't unclipped him there and made sure that he was safe, the whole team would have never made the summit. So as you move up the glacier, and if you haven't had that fierce conversation with those individuals that may be dragging down the rest of the team, you know what they say, you're only as strong as your weakest link. If you haven't had that conversation with an individual who's on the team that shouldn't be on the team to get to the summit, and you get too high on the mountain, the entire team has to turn. No one gets to summit. So as hard as everybody has worked, as all the money they've spent, the time they've taken out of their life to get to this point on the mountain, no one gets to achieve success because one person didn't have what it took, and the rest of the team was not willing to have a conversation with that team member. So when I think about who we are as real estate professionals, I relate it back to climbing. I relate a lot of stuff back to climbing. When I think about being in a boardroom, I think about being on a mountain. What's the objective? What do we have to do in order to achieve it? How much work do we have to get accomplished in order to be prepared to take it on? How hard do we have to work in order to get to that objective? Who's the team that we're going to surround ourselves with? And how are we actually going to have it? And then assessing everyone as you continue to move forward, and be willing to have fierce conversations with people and say, I love you, but you can't be part of my team today. Same thing with this industry. Same thing with this company. As we think about who we are as real estate professionals, we have to be willing to hold other people accountable. We have to be willing to hold all of those people that are around us that are affecting our ability to achieve the objective. We have to be willing to have conversations about how their actions may be impacting us and our reputation. And if we think collectively like that as an industry, and if we think collectively like that as a company, and if we think collectively like that as individuals, we will in fact raise the bar and take ourselves, this company, and the industry to a completely different level in the eyes of the consumer. That's your challenge. Be fierce with yourself, and be fierce with every single person that is around you that is having an effect or an impact on who you are professionally. You deserve to have the best rope team in the business. And if there's a weak link, you got to be willing to cut them short. So this was fun, Rick. I'm super excited to be here. I can't tell you how excited I am. There is tremendous opportunity. This is a team of people that I have such tremendous respect for, not only from the leadership, but all the way down through, the agents and who we are as an organization and the kind of market presence that we have. Having market share like this organization has in the Wasatch Front doesn't come without being the best that there is in the business. And you should be incredibly proud of what you've been able to accomplish. And I only hope to bring some additional value to the table to help us to continue to get to that next level of success. So thanks for the opportunity.
Here's a guy that had, what, less than a half hour?
Yeah.
Can you imagine if he was prepared? I'll have him on my rope team any day.
Prepared for 30 years.
Yeah, well, that's the deal. I mean, really, seriously, to have this caliber of person with us, Rick, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, if you got questions for Rick, I mean, interesting, as I watched what he's done with Century 21 and bringing the brand literally back to life, has been inspiring. And knowing, and really, you don't know this, and I knew you were a Coldwell Banker, had seen you in person before, but to see you take this step and to be with us is part of what we're doing. And you hear that, here's what's fun, to hear the passion in somebody's voice and to be able to come in and do a presentation like this, that's exciting. That's what, he's part of us and what we're doing, and it fits so well. This is the exciting thing, the stuff that this guy's seeing. It's a view of the world and what he's done, and that becomes part of us. And so I thank you personally for being here and doing this on such short notice.
My pleasure.
And really, an apology, because I just blasted into his office and sat down without asking him if he even had a minute. And he was so gracious to stop what you were doing, so thank you, and I apologize for just busting in on you. But
all right.
I thought about this through the week and hoping that he would be around, and I'm grateful that you were here. Jason, you had a question?
No, wanted to see if we had some questions.
Yeah.
Since
Yes.
you've achieved,
What's your name?
my name's Philippe.
Philippe, nice to meet you.
Since you've achieved what you've achieved, what drives you at this point?
To work with people that I truly respect and admire, to be in an organization that is known for its integrity, and to have a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here. I'm here to have fun. I've worked hard and I've achieved what I needed to achieve to feel good about my success professionally. And this is all about me and my family and just wanting to have fun for the rest of my life.
Nice. Good question. Other questions?
We can expect the business to be different 10 years from now than what it is now. I mean, it will always be evolving and going through change. And it's interesting to me to get the perspective of someone like yourself who has a lot broader perspective than what we do in our little tiny marketplace here. What type of trends do you see that are just starting to form now? It seems like there is kind of a sense of change in the air. What are some of the things that you see that perhaps we got to be preparing for and trying to get in front of?
So one of the things that I would recommend is try to fly at 10,000 feet once in a while, even if it's for a couple hours a week. And what I mean by that is go out and search the industry. You can do it on the web. Go to Inman.com. If you don't have an Inman Select subscription, it's like $150 for a full year. You get the articles that come through on Inman Select will really get you thinking about the changes that are occurring within the business. This is not specific to transaction. And it's not like transaction-oriented kind of information, although there is some really good information as to, you know, finding listings in a tight inventory market and things like that, or better ways of serving the customer through use of technology, etc. So I would recommend that you fly at 10,000 feet once in a while in your business. Don't get so mired down in the details and, you know, as they say, you can't see the forest through the trees, because you're so deep in what you're doing on a day-to-day basis that you fail to stop and kind of soar a little bit. In the job that I was in, I got an opportunity to soar a lot. I wasn't mired in the details. I'm a strategist at the end of the day. I see vision and opportunity, and then I strategize on how to accomplish that. I'm not the guy in the trenches who's trying to get it accomplished on a day-to-day basis. That being said, the things that I'm seeing, there's a lot of conversation in the industry today about the disintermediation of the real estate agent. There's a lot of discussion. So back in the year 2000, in the Washington, D.C. metro, AOL's headquarters was set up on the Dulles Corridor out near Dulles Airport in Virginia. AOL, as all of us know, was really the first primary internet services provider that there was in the United States. Well, the fact that that was in the Virginia market, and there was tons of conversation about that. And during the tech run-up years of, you know, call it 96, 97, 98, 99, with AOL in the marketplace, the internet just starting to hit, tons of technology companies that were spinning up office space all throughout the market. There was all of this conversation that the commercial real estate agent was going to be disintermediated from the real estate transaction. And especially in the commercial real estate industry, where one principal to another principal having a conversation that is non-emotional because it's all about financial return is a whole lot easier to disintermediate someone from that transaction than it would be in a home sale process. So there was all of this discussion in, call it 97, 8, 9, into the year 2000 before the tech bust. And for those of you that don't know or are too young, there was a tremendous tech bust in the year 2000, tremendous. The tech market fell off a cliff. The NASDAQ, you know, dropped I don't know how many percentage points, and so many technology companies went belly up that had raised huge amounts of venture capital in order to start up. So when that happened, it kind of shifted the mindset back to, wait a minute, technology is great because it enables the ability to be able to accomplish something that you couldn't accomplish if you didn't have the technology available to you. And people started to think differently about, how do I utilize technology in order to improve the customer experience and in turn improve my ability to be able to do more transactions today because I have technology than I could have if I didn't have technology. I mean, Justin, you and your team are a prime example of that. You couldn't possibly sell the number of homes that your team is selling today without effectively utilizing technology as a foundation and a base to the business. It's just the nature of the beast today. So what's happening in the industry today, in the residential real estate industry, there's all of this conversation about changing consumer expectation. And the consumer is going to disintermediate. Technology and these other models will disintermediate the real estate agent. And they point to all of these different kinds of models and different technologies, and the fact that the consumer today, especially the millennial, you know, is not going to want to engage. But as I said at the beginning of my talk, to the person, and I have had hundreds, literally hundreds of conversations with millennials who had recently bought and or sold a home, and to the person, every single one of them had a tremendous amount of need to have a real estate agent involved in the transaction. No matter how much technology, expertise, speed of process, whatever it happened to be was brought to the table, they wanted someone who was going to validate their decision. They wanted someone who had expertise that was going to say to them, you know something? You got a really good deal on this home. You know something? These are some of the things that you need to watch out for. Hey, let me help you to negotiate this particular agreement. Hey, let me connect you to some people in the service industry that can help you to accomplish the things you got to get done with this house. Let me leverage my industry relationships and bring potential buyers to the table and really heat up you know, the activity on your home before we put it on the market. Technology can't do that. Technology doesn't have market intelligence. Technology has market information that you need to take and create intelligence with that information. You need to know the street better than the people who live on it. You need to know the story behind every house that is for sale on that street. When I used to have young people come onto my team in the commercial real estate business, I would give them a section of the market. And if it was in the city, I'd give them 9 blocks by 9 blocks. And I would tell them they had 6 weeks and they had to come back to me and they had to give me the history of every single commercial real estate asset within that 9 block by 9 block radius. And they had to tell me who every single tenant was in each of those buildings, and they had to tell me when their leases expired. Because those stories in the market help to create an opportunity when you're having a conversation with a prospective buyer or seller. Knowing the story of the marketplace, like, I just rented a home in Sandy, right? I rented it because we don't know this market at all. I didn't want to get into the same situation that I was in New Jersey, buying at the peak of the market and, you know, having the market crash and not really knowing where we wanted to live. So I rented this home. Man, I wish I knew someone who could have told me about this idiot landlord that I have. Because the guy is an idiot. And he doesn't do what he says he's going to do. He only finishes things halfway. I'm spending a ton of my own money to make the house right because he's not going to spend it. But it would have been great to have that knowledge, right? That expertise, that intelligence about this landlord. Even though I know that that's not our primary business, but it's just an example. So the conversation and the trends that are happening in the business today is conversation and trends about how technology is disrupting the industry. And what I say to that is that we have an opportunity to disrupt the disruptors. But the way that you have to think about that is you have to position yourself in the trajectory of the market. It's the only way to accomplish it. You have to fly at 10,000 feet occasionally so that you have an understanding of what's really going on in the industry, and then think about how you're going to shift your business to place yourself in the path of where the market is going. How is the industry going to change in the next 10 years, and what do you need to do differently with your business in addition to the core aspects of your business that you do day to day in serving your customer and identifying opportunity? How are you going to need to shift a changing consumer expectation? Because that buyer who's the millennial that's 35 today, there's going to be tons more of those millennial buyers in 10 years from now who are too young to buy a home today but will clearly be in the home buying range pretty darn soon. And how are they going to think and act differently, and what expectation will they have in that 10-year span? So what I'm seeing is all of these various models that are trying to disrupt the industry. And there's many of them out there, but they all come back to one thing. They come back to relevancy. They come back to whether or not the agent was relevant in the transaction and to the customer, whether it be the buying or selling customer, and whether or not they delivered a service that was so great that the customer would never consider going outside and trying to do it on their own or hiring a competitor to come and serve their business. So what we have to do is we've got to anticipate those changes in the market. And it's something that I watch all the time. I spend a lot of time researching the industry, a lot of time, understanding the different models, understanding our competition, understanding technology changes, the way in which the business is changing, what the consumer is saying. I understand macroeconomics because the macroeconomic picture is really all that the consumer understands because it's all that they hear on the broad-based news, right? You know, where the 10-year treasury is and how that's going to impact mortgage rates and what's going on with home values and home inventory and what's happening with, consumer confidence and consumer spending and what's going on in retail. Those are the only things that the customer, our home buyers and sellers, hear about on a day-to-day basis. So I spend time to make sure that I fully understand what that means. And beyond that, I fully understand what's beneath it. So if they have a question and want to get into a conversation, I can talk details and tell them why there's this perception about what's going on with the market. So it's really just more about truly hearing what the customer is looking for and what their expectation is, and then serving that up to them through whatever means is necessary. Whether that's, boy, I got to do some research on that to be able to deliver and have a bona fide conversation, or is there something else that I need to be doing in terms of how I serve that customer through the use of technology or through something else? Lots going on today in the business. It's, you know, we don't have to look far for disruption. I mean, you look at what Amazon's doing today with the purchase of Whole Foods. It's just unbelievable. I don't, have you read about these hives that they're going to start building? I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's basically going to be these, you know, 10-story buildings with these, that is like a giant beehive, and they're going to have drones flying in and out and doing delivery, and this is going to come to fruition. There is no question about it. They have completely disrupted the retail business. Completely disrupted it. Uber, do you think that the taxi industry ever saw them coming? Do you think they ever got together as an industry to have a conversation about how to clean up the taxi industry and change the service delivery for the customer? They never did. And guess what? Everywhere I travel to, every Uber I get into, I have a conversation about, why'd you become an Uber driver? Did you ever drive a taxi? Oh yeah, I drove a taxi. Man, you wouldn't believe I paid $200,000 for a taxi medallion back in 1985, and that taxi medallion today is worth $3,500.
And the CEO just got booted.
And this, yeah, of Uber. Yeah. And, you know, it's just, it's same thing with Airbnb. You know, did Conrad Hilton and Bill Marriott ever see Brian Chesney coming? I doubt it. But he changed the way that people look at the hospitality space, completely shifted it. And people are trying to do that to the real estate space today, working really hard, and there's tons of money behind it. What we have to do, pardon?
Silicon Valley money.
Absolutely. VC in the billions that is chasing a share of our industry. What we have to do is be focused on understanding the customer, understanding their expectations, delivering a high level of service, being highly relevant in the transaction, staying on top of what's going on in the industry, staying on top of what's happening in the economy, and delivering on all of that to the customer at the end of the day. And shift and change and mold as the industry shifts and changes and molds. The way I conduct my own personal business today, how I go about my business, is so different from how I did 10 years ago. But it's because I evolved with the market. The key is we need to evolve before the market gets there.
Excellent. Any other questions? We're at 12:30. Rick, again, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Everybody, thanks for being here.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you. Very good. Awesome. Oh, we'll get lunch.
Okay.
Thanks. How was everything? Great. Did you get out on a motorcycle? We met before. Good. Good to see you. Oh, wow. Cool. Wow. Really? Yeah. We all.
I turned off faster.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Your name is? Galen? Can I see your... Okay, Lynn. Okay, got it. Nice to meet you. Oh, my pleasure. Nice to meet you, Jeff. Yeah, call me anytime. Just upstairs. Please do.
Yeah, I didn't know.